Yeah, go ahead.
How did the scientists establish theories like macroevolution without any correspondence to it?
Okay, that's a good question. How did science establish the theory of evolution without correspondence to it? In other words, anchored in reality. Well, that's a very good question. I think it can be answered on several levels. Number one, I think we have to address this by attacking the lens of the scientists first of all. A lot of scientists come into their work looking at the data from a certain worldview. What is that worldview? Are they materialists? Are they relativists? Are they secularists? Are they atheists? Are they naturalists? Or do they believe that it's a theistic universe? Um, and those determine a lot what you see in the data. You almost look for what you want to see in some ways. So science is not only about pure raw data; it's about interpretation. And I think we mentioned this last time in our last discussion is that if you lead to any other conclusion besides naturalism, then it may open the door to this being a designed universe. If it's a designed universe, then you'll have a designer. And if you have a designer, you'll have some kind of moral law attached to that. And we don't want anybody telling us what to do. We are the experts of our own world. Humanism is also an element of modern science. Man is the measure of all things, even though he's just created, even though he's just evolved as an animal. Evolutionists tend to lower man. Uh, design creationists tend to elevate man in the image of God, which has completely different ethical ramifications in a lot of other areas. But I think that's one thing is that they have a lens, and so you can read into the data what you want to see. However, if you really were honest about it, there is not one shred of evidence for macroevolution. Not one shred of evidence for chemical evolution. It's even more speculative because it's an origin science. You can't really, the past is not here today. So how is this anchored in correspondence? And that is the irony, because scientists should be about truth. It's another way of learning truth. Truth is not something I determine; it's something I discover. But Darwin formed his theory based on homology and structures and forms, what he appeared to be similar. You know, the bones he saw in a bird's wing may have resembled the bones in a hand in some ways, same type of thing. So therefore, there was a common descent. Whereas another with a different lens was probably more objective um, and honest about the data would say there's a common design. Designers can use common designs and change some of the aspects. So I don't know. I think there is that element, and I think that is the big illogical fallacy of evolution. Is these people are sincerely trying to find truth, but they're not really looking at every paradigm through every lens. So, and a lot of them are obviously very honest. They bought this that naturalism and their reductionism is all of reality, and that we have to explain life by merely natural causes in a closed system. That life is all only reduced to materials. So, I think that may answer it to some extent. So, thanks for that question. Any other questions? Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead.
The question is, um, if some truths are not yet discovered, or some truths are not yet real.
Hmm.
So you would,
So what? What's that mean?
that's not all truths are not yet truth. Not all truths are already known. Some
Yeah,
are
right.
still.
Of course. That's the whole purpose of science. It keeps it going. Not everything is known. Um, but again, the scientific method, even when we didn't know something years ago and now we know it, you start with what you do know and you make hypotheses into the unknown, and you test it, it becomes affirmed, and you've just gone from the known to the unknown, and you bridge that gap. So all science goes from that. And I maintain that you can also, there are other ways of knowing things, metaphysical realities that you can also know. We've already talked about the immaterial side of man. The laws of logic is immaterial. Mathematics is immaterial, but we know it exists. That bridges the gap to the metaphysical. Information in DNA is immaterial, even though it has material components. But information is always from an intelligence. You cannot separate information and intelligence. So there's definitely things that are not known still. So, okay, we'll take a little break and we'll come back. Thanks.